Hi, welcome to Gender Speaker Live, the penultimate show of my 30-day challenge. And today I'm going to be talking to a trans friend of mine who's also a member of the Professional Speaking Association, Joanne Lockwood. So let's get started. Yeah, so welcome to the penultimate of my 30-day challenge. Tomorrow I'll be talking a little bit about what's happening in the future. But now please welcome my guest today, Joanne Lockwood. Hi, welcome, Joanna.
Hi, Ricky. Great to see you again.
Yes, and you too.
Pleasure to be here. Yeah, it's really good.
It's been a strange 6 months, hasn't it? This for us.
I often say to people that, I mean, like yourself, my life has been through a significant period of change at one point. So I'm no stranger to significant change. I've embraced it once, and that's given me certainly a level of resilience to handle most things that are thrown at me these days. So this was kind of another, oh, well, here we go again, have to do something different and just figure it out. So, yeah, I haven't really suffered poor mental health or struggled with it. I've kind of bounced back quite quickly, really.
Do you think that's been part of dealing with that process of change as trans women? That we had to face so much crap.
I think I don't know about you, but I went through that vortex where it's a bit like the Bermuda Triangle. You go into it, and there's rough oceans of lightning and storms and turbulence, and somehow you've got to get yourself to the other side into clear water. So I'm kind of used to sort of navigating those dark times, and I can recognise the signs now where I'm starting to get drawn into that feeling, and I just pull myself out of it and carry on. And I don't know. I guess it's just purely that I've been through this, and you've obviously got your own lived experience. But I've been through this significant change in my own gender, my life, my career, and this is just another bend in the road.
I mean, I think this is of interest to people because people watching this are expecting stuff on gender. So this is where I'm focusing. When did it all start for you? When did you realise that you weren't comfortable in a male body?
There was a point in my life where I describe it as it became necessary. That's kind of, it was necessary. Before it became necessary, it was manageable. It was okay. I could fight it. But one point, there's a tipping point where it suddenly became necessary, and that became a one-way street. And I guess it was during my 40s, probably my mid-40s, the necessity was increasing in pace. And I guess it came really around about 2015, 2016, so that's 5 years ago, where a couple of things happened. One of them, at the time, I lost a lot of weight, which unfortunately I've put back on again. But at the time, I lost a lot of weight.
It happens like that, doesn't it?
I'd already made the decision to have laser hair removal on my face. And I bought myself a nice new blonde wig. And what happened one day is I think what happened was I looked at myself in the mirror and I saw me. So those three things came into alignment. The changes in my face due to the laser removal, this nice new kind of cute blonde wig, and a body that I was kind of proud of, all happened at once. And I looked in the mirror and thought, that's me. And then that was the kind of, it became the art of possible. I think up to that point, I was kind of like, well, I won't be taken seriously. I can't. I don't like myself. I can't take myself seriously. How can anybody else? And then that very moment, I looked at it and thought, I'm me. I can take this seriously. I believe in myself. And I think that was the bridge I crossed, believing in myself. That was the bridge I started to cross. I knew that I had to find myself. I wouldn't say I was there at that point, but it was that belief kicked in.
I think we all reach that point there where somewhere suddenly we think, I can't stop. I can't not be me anymore. And
then it was just a case of I used to describe it as breaking the chains. The analogy I would say was I was in a swimming pool with these big metal chains dragging me under the water, and I was gasping for breath. And it was a case of a chain was sort of like financial responsibility. One was family commitments. One was reputation. One was credibility, friends. All these chains of things that hold you back in life. And I started just breaking them one at a time, and just deciding in my own head what were my red lines in terms of what wouldn't I sacrifice.
So were you aware of this when you were? Were you aware of this all when you were actually like a teenager? I mean, you were in the RAF. Was that? Was it still something bubbling away under the surface that you were just hiding, or?
Oh yeah, I mean completely. I mean, I was born in the mid-60s,
Right.
so I was a teenager in I left school in 81,
Right.
and you can't say why back then. Homosexuality was decriminalised in 67.
Well, partially, yeah.
In terms of the criminalisation, maybe decriminalised, maybe in England. I'm not sure about the rest of the world. So that was on the back of gay, lesbian, queer people were still seen as kind of subversive, kind of like underground. AIDS pandemic kicked
Well, that
in.
that brought it back into focus.
Brought it back into figure there. So being gay, being queer, but however you wanted to identify and describe yourself, was still seen as something that was undesirable in society. It wasn't polite conversation. It was still. So whatever I had in my head was telling me that it was wrong, it was bad, it was Me exploring my young girl self, to me felt right, but to anybody else would have seemed weird. A little girl trying her mum's shoes on and lipstick is cute. A little boy doing that is strange. So I was no different to a little girl doing what little girls do, trying their mum's clothes and makeup on. I was just doing it, but my body was built as a boy. So I knew that I shouldn't be doing it. And so probably a little girl knows she shouldn't be trying mummy's stuff on, but the little girl will think, well, mummy's going to laugh and give me a hug and say, well, oh, this is cute. But I knew that my mum would have turned around and go, hang on a minute, this is wrong. Well, that's what I perceived. I have no idea if she would. So I hid that. And I guess from the very early age, and I'm guessing now, but that was probably the age of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, quite pre-10 anyway. Early memories. So I got used to hiding it. I got used to knowing in my head this was wrong. This is something I shouldn't do. I was sneaking around. I was being very careful to put things back. It was kind of, then I was having dreams about owning my own wardrobe and wishing it was my stuff. And then I started feeling I was sat in the wrong queue, because I used to be a cub and a scout. And we used to have church parades on a Sunday, and I remember sitting in church parade in the row behind the guides, thinking I'm in the wrong row here. I should be sat with the guides, all that kind of thing.
Yeah,
but it's just stuff in your head that your mind just adapts to it and says, "This is not you. You just got to get on with it."
Yeah, you can't do that. Yeah. So you basically had a life really in sort of electronics and computers all the time, hasn't it? That's been your
give or take, yeah. I studied electronics in the RAF. I was an aircraft radar and radio apprentice at the time. We didn't agree. It wasn't for me, that life, so I left after about just over 3 years and joined a defence contractor called Plessy's near Portsmouth. And then I realised that my passion wasn't electronics; it was actually the computers. I much rather dabble with the test equipment, and I became, I suppose mid-80s. I was 18, 19, 20-ish. So I was kind of that young, right on the money kid who loved computers right at the time where everybody else was kind of. It's no different to look at young kids today playing with their iPads and their digital natives. I was as close to a PC native as you could get.
Yeah,
I became aware of computers with ZX80s, ZX81s. Dragons. I grew up from the age of sort of 7 or 8, playing with Commodores and all that sort of thing. Typing in programs, you'd end up buying a magazine and you key the entire program
onto an audio tape. Yes.
Yeah. So I was learning to type at the age of 7 or 8 one finger at a time, coding the stuff on these computers. So I was as close as you could get to a PC native as you could get in those days. Yeah. So for me, I was in the right place at the right time with the right aptitude.
Yeah, no, it was good times when everything was all sort of, it was so much new happening, wasn't it? Just this whole world opening up. So I've a couple of things. I was looking through your various places online and looking at various little odd things about you. Tell me a bit about the Rotary Club.
It was actually the Round Table. I am a member of Rotary. I was the Round Table national president, not the Rotary.
Right. Okay. Right. Well, that's
quickly edit that one. They have similar parallel kind of aims and objectives, but they're distinctly separate with their own identities. They're both service clubs. They're both organisations that promote good community service. But I joined by chance because a colleague I worked with at the time, we happened to go to lunch one day, and we saw a car with a sticker on the back window, because it's when you were a member of a club, you used to have a little sticker, you put it in your back window, a car sticker, and it's sort of like it told you who your fellow members were, that kind of thing, a bit like a National Trust sticker you get in the cars these days. And we saw this, and he said, "Oh, my dad was a Round Table chairman of his local club. He founded the Wareham Club. He said we should do this one day." I went, "Whatever, okay." And he made a couple of phone calls and said, "Oh, look, I found out where we're going to go. I found out where the meeting." So we racked up on one Thursday night. We used to meet Thursdays. In September, I kind of remember it as 1991, just before my daughter was born. And I kind of got into it. It was entering a world that was so different to I'd ever experienced. These kind of middle-class lawyers, solicitors, bankers, it was all kind of the upper echelons of the business community who all sat in this room, being very blokey and laddie and bantery. And it was just such a kind of awe-inspiring situation where you had to sort of thrive or die. It was kind of, there was no room for sort of being weak. You very learned quickly how to run meetings, how to speak, how to get your point across, how to, with respect, Mr. Chairman, kind of stuff. It was kind of very much like that.
Well, ironically, I wrote a radio play about 10 years ago, just after, no, a bit more than that now, about 15 years ago, in which my main character had met somebody and was being drawn out of the closet, and had met this friend via I think it was Rotary, or I can't remember whether I had Rotary or Round Table as the club. I'd chosen not to use Masons because that was mine. I was actually a Freemason, Master of a Lodge, and actually came out while I was still immediate past master. And members of the lodge were struggling very hard with my acrylic nails, even though I didn't have any nail polish on my hair, which I was now dyeing and putting in a ponytail. So, but interestingly, I don't know what about Round Table and Rotary, but the Freemasons earlier this year came out and said, fine, if someone changes gender, they still remain a Freemason and are still welcome to come to the meetings after they've changed gender. And I thought, whoa.
Well, Round Table is a proudly single sex, single gender, however you want to use it.
Masonry.
Yeah. So I think I would be embraced if I was assigned female at birth and had transitioned to become a man. I would be embraced.
Yes.
But because I'd left the grouping that is supported by the membership, then I was no longer eligible. I mean, I'd already left the organisation when I became open. But I had lots of people behind my back and confused by it, and I'm sure, there's no difficulty. And one of the things that held me back was the reputation, the status I brought up. My claim to fame is I'm the first openly trans past national president of Round Table. I'm not aware of anybody else who was open about being it. But where do I fit? They now have these black tie dinners, the past presidents, the past chairman, the past clubs. and they're stag do's. So the last thing I want to do is rack up in a DJ with a bow tie. The last thing I want to do is be the only woman in the room. Yes, I'd love to come to ladies' nights or things like that, but I don't know. I reflected long and hard of my time in Roundtable, 20 odd years.
I withdrew
And
from this
yeah.
for the same reasons. I just felt it would make other people uncomfortable. It would make me uncomfortable. And I was more concerned about the fact that I would make other people feel uncomfortable by my presence there. You know,
I don't get it myself. I don't get why I'd want to be there. I mean, there was quite a lot of times I always felt I was in the wrong outfit anyway. You know, the ladies' nights, the ball grounds, I'd rather been there. I don't know if I was trying to fit into a male life. I don't know if I was trying to force myself into it and find myself in that way. I can't reverse engineer what was going through my brain, but at the time, it was something that I was trying. But
I will tell you a little story. At the point at which I was changing gender and attending my sort of last meetings, I'd gone to one meeting, and this is obviously a Freemason, and we used to meet. There's a pub called the Hercules just opposite Freemasons Hall in London, and I was there having a drink and having a chat to somebody I'd never met before. We had a long chat about Masonic history, and I went off to the loo, obviously as a guy. Came back, and as I was coming back, he was heading to the loo himself. He said, "Oh, Ricky, I just wanted to say, if you're ever down in Kent, look me up, because I'm a transvestite. I'd love to go for a night out with you." And I thought, and this was a really senior, high-ranking Freemason. So you never know underneath all the garb and underneath the bow ties and the tuxedos, whether actually it's stockings and suspenders. So
I've met many part-time
it's very strange, isn't it?
Oh, so you keep going. I've met many part-time tablers who have since told me that they're trans, and I actually knew some. I actually knew somebody. I still kind of know them, and we've been great friends for years and years and years. And we met each other on Facebook as women, and had no idea who the other person was in their past male life. And it's one day we kind of twigged. They twigged who I was, and they went, "You're kidding. That's you." And I went, "Yeah, why?" I said, "Well, I know you as this because this is me." And I went, "Geez, how on earth did that happen?" That we've been great friends for years, and we got to know each other again as women, but didn't put two and two together. That was our old life. Strange, isn't it?
Right, I've got a internet problem here.
I can see you're freezing occasionally.
Yeah,
Should I do a song and dance routine? Should I carry on talking for a bit?
Yeah, we're so tell me about Sea Change.
Well, so Sea Change happened. It's my kind of. I came up with a brand, and it was born out of my mantra I coined, which is smile, engage, and educate. Because I'm a great believer in how you approach a situation with your demeanor affects a lot of how the outcome of that conversation. So go into it and educate, go into it with a smile. Engage, start a conversation, make the other person feel comfortable, the conversation flows. And once you've got engagement and you've got a positive attitude and energy in that conversation, then education can occur. So that was always my view. Go in with a smile, have a conversation, and through that comes education. And change happened I was just probably thinking about Gandhi or something, be the change you want to see. Or I've probably heard it on the radio at some point, and I just see change happen, just resonated with me. And then I Googled C and came up with an I logo, and then that's how it came. So it wasn't some sort of massive branding exercise. It was just like an epiphany that resonated. So yeah, that's where it came from. And now I class myself as an inclusion and belonging specialist. Trans awareness is part of what I do, and a very proud part of what I do, because I believe that I have a responsibility, same as everybody else, to be visible and to educate where I can. But yeah, I work with a lot of talent acquisition organisations, recruiters, HR, learning and development teams. Very much like you, educating around inclusion, belonging, and helping people to thrive in the workplace and society.
It's been quite difficult I've found this last 10 years, because 10 years ago, I had set up an organization which I called Gender Shift, and we were actually doing community support. We had a lot of funding. I got £250,000 to buy a building and equip it and put all sorts of things in. And we were providing a huge amount of support for trans people struggling with where they were going. And we were trying to work, because I think it's very hard when you're in that position. You must remember this, when you're trying to figure out, where do I go from here? Do I go for surgery? Do I go to the doctors? Is this just something that I should treat socially? And the argument of, am I transvestite, transsexual, transgender, all of those 10, 15 years ago. Now, just been listening to a book, there are so many labels now. I don't know how the hell anybody manages to bring them all together. It's just got a bit utterly confusing. But I think what happened when the government changed after the Equality Act, and suddenly we had that shutdown, that the whole of the public sector literally said, okay, fine, that's it, no more spending. And it really, really hit me badly. I lost the business. We lost everything. That we effectively handed the business back to the funders and said, look, I'm sorry, we can't run. We just could not get anyone to hire us, and nobody was doing training. And for a couple of years, that's how it stood. And we'd got the funding for the capital expenditure, but nothing to provide for the revenue. And to be honest, it was the water board and the electricity company that put us out of business, because without being able to pay those unbelievably astronomical bills, it turned out, I had no idea how much it cost to run a building and keep a building heated and with plenty of water. But we were suddenly trying to find £10,000-15,000 in electricity and water bills and just couldn't get it. So we just said, no, we couldn't. The funding had gone as well, because what had happened was lots of public sector organizations had hived off little parts of their organizations, made them community interest companies, and they came straight back in with huge teams of funding experts and grabbed up all the funding. So effectively, portions of the public sector were using the community sector as a way of, well, basically they raided our funds, raided everything we had available. Yeah. And all of the voluntary sector stuff just fell apart. And it was a really, really bad shame. I don't know when we'll see it actually recover. I was talking to some people recently, and it's still a big struggle for support organizations to survive. So
I'd like to think there's quite a rise in social enterprises, CICs, as social entrepreneurs are becoming more established, and I think there's a greater buzz. You know, it's called Social Entrepreneurs. There's the Social Entrepreneurs Network. There's a whole load of organisations out there supporting people who are setting up small enterprises. So I'd like to think that the community spirit will come through. Maybe not with some sort of big cash cow, but certainly maybe in a smaller, more community focused way.
This is my worry about the leaving in the EU, because a lot of the funding was funding that came directly from the EU, particularly in places like Hull. And I mean, Southampton's not Southampton Portsmouth have got some big deprivation problems as well down there as well, haven't they? So it's
well, maybe we hope that the money that was going towards the EU and then coming back comes straight in. But who knows? Who knows?
Well, we spent it all on COVID, so it's
yes,
not going to be there. So are you? So you're delivering mostly training to what? Mostly small organizations, large organizations. What are you finding there?
There's no kind of generalization. It's across the board. Some of them are professional membership organizations. Sort of like chartered bodies. I'm doing some lunch and learns to those sort of people. There's some city councils and town councils. There's some public sector bodies like police forces and NHS trusts. There's some financial organisations, banks, and other investment-type companies, and also media companies and people involved in the gambling industry. So there's no one-size-fits-all.
Is this all online now?
At the moment, for the last 3 or 4 months, it's all been online. So what you see is my virtual office. I've got lots of little tech gadgets set up to sort of amplify engagement and to sort of give me a bit more of a show, a bit more panaz, rather than just being a talking head. Trying to live up to some of the expectations of the the young streaming community who and the influencers that are out there on Instagram and others. There's a high demand for good production quality in certain quarters. So yeah, I've invested not huge amounts, just tactically here and there, to create an environment that I'm comfortable with.
No, I mean, it looks really good what you've done. It's probably, and I know that a lot of speakers are struggling trying to figure out what on earth to do, because it is such a huge shift that we've suddenly had to go from what we know, standing on stage and delivering a talk, we're all good at that, suddenly trying to make what happens online as exciting, as engaging, is actually not as easy as people thought it was going to be. Certainly not as easy as I thought it might be.
No, because we have no control over the end user experience or the end user interest of engagement. We don't know if they've minimized this. We don't know if they've got their phone out. We don't know anything's going on. So once we've lost them, we've lost them. We can't recover them, and it's really important to keep that engagement, to reach out, to show vocal variety, different sort of media interest. If you try and lecture someone for 15 minutes, they're just going to turn off. So it really is trying to keep that difference. And I've learned it's less about me talking and more about me engaging and facilitating a conversation. So as soon as I go into a monologue, that's when people are disengaged. What I got to do is do it more rhetorically, more questioning, or let's have a think about that. Let me just pause, have a think about what I've just said for a minute. Right, who's got a thought on that? So almost like that different pace, a different cadence of the talk, and not just me trying to head for the finish line and deliver that. Right, made the time, ding, thank you very much. Feedback form here, I'm off. So it's a much more a conversation. That's the way I try and do it now. Yeah, absolutely. So if people want to find out about you, seechangehappen.co.uk, that's the best place. That's the one. Or LinkedIn. I welcome inbound contact on LinkedIn, Joe.Lockwood, or Joanne Lockwood. And then from there, you can send me a message. You can find my website. You can, if you want, I've got a podcast which goes out, a new episode every Thursday morning at 7:30 in the morning. And simultaneously, my newsletter goes out at the same time. So I've got Inclusion Bites, the podcast, and Inclusion Bites Spotlight, which is my newsletter. So feel free to subscribe to either of those, or drop me a line on LinkedIn saying, "Hi, Joe," and let's have a conversation. Okay, absolutely wonderful. Thanks very much indeed, Joe. Really appreciate you being on here. Just hang on a minute while I just close down and we'll just have a little chat. But Joanne Lockwood, who is available through seechangehappen.co.uk. Thanks very much indeed for being here on the show. Right, so tomorrow, just a couple of things. Remind you that I've got a trans and non-binary inclusion workshop I'm running on the 20th of October. Pay what you can afford on that. Just go down. You'll find the details down in the below the video. Tomorrow is the last. It's my end of my 30-day challenge, and I'm going to be looking about future plans. This becoming a regular weekly show and some other stuff that I'm putting together. For now, thank you for being with us, and hope to see you again soon. Take care.